course.
The Charred Barrel. Heartless bitch. It's like normal people. Fifth the understudy. The scripts and props belong to a production of The Most Unfortunate Tale of Pavia and Burnett. Right. Let's have a chat. The young elf is dressed in gaudy robes that he seems ready to cast off. He picks at a heavily brocaded sleeve and continually adjusts the gold chain around his neck. He looks up at you. Did she send you to run me out of town? You can tell her I'm not going anywhere without that medallion. I told Cyril I wouldn't let her sell it. If that's what you are here about, then save yourself the trouble. He puffs up his chest but glances at the exit. Yes. I'm not after you, but maybe I can help. He pulls at a shining button. That's a relief, but I don't see how. Cyril's a courtesan over at the Salty Mast in Ondra's gift. We've been working together for over a year now. I find a noble with more money than sense, fill him up with liquor and send him her way. They have a good time and Cyril takes her fee and a little extra. He rubs his fingers together. 100 coppers here, a trinket there. It's a bounty for us. These lords and ladies never notice anything missing. Go on. Anyway, we always split the bounty. Until a week ago. He squeezes his lips into a tight frown. She takes a necklace off of some noble. It's an Engwithan medallion, damn near priceless. That relic is sacred to my clan, but she won't part with it for any sum I could afford. He tugs at the gold chain around his neck, and even if I wanted to, I can't go home without it. Sagani's brow furrows in pity. That's a hard thing. Hmm. Tell me more about your situation. He picks at the hem of his sleeve. What do you want to know? Tell me about Cyril. She's a courtesan. Yeah. She wasn't born to much, but she's done what she has to in order to escape that. He gazes at a string of amber beads around his wrist. She's a good friend. He holds his arms in his trailing wrinkled sleeves. Without her, I'd probably be living hand to mouth like the rest of the Shattering Spear. But this isn't about her or me. It's about the 40 people in my clan and the way of life we've held to for generations. Okay, tell me more about why this medallion is so important. I grew up in Erneglanfath with the Shattering Spear tribe. Shattering Spear clan. We Glanfathans have protected Engwithan ruins for thousands of years. It's the one duty the guards ask of us in exchange for the freedom to live as we please. He fidgets with an emerald ring on his pinky. Treasure hunters looted the ruins in our territory and we left the wilds we'd dwelled in for generations. Most of my clanmates scattered to towns around the Durwood and probably live on a crust of bread. He looks at his embroidered robes with disgust. Restoring this medallion to the ruins would earn us the gods' forgiveness. The shattering spear could go home. This is all rather fascinating. A single medallion to earn the gods' favor and so return home. It rather reminds me of a story I heard somewhere. Hmm. Why exactly can't you just go back? He sighs, arching his neatly plucked eyebrows. Of course I could, but that's not the point. A community isn't a place, it's a connection to history and meaning. He makes circles with his wrist, like an anchor. Defending the ruins for the gods gave us a purpose. Without that, we're adrift. Does this make any sense to you? Yes, yes it does. You can see it in a lot of other things. If you have a collection of people somewhere, it's let's say an online game. It's in general it's like herding cats, like to trying to get them to do something. At the same time, if you don't have some kind of a goal or a purpose that sort of more or less people can get behind. It doesn't have to be anything particularly important, just something. They tend to wander off and start doing their own thing. You just have to have something, otherwise there's not much point in the group itself. People tend to want something more than just a random celestial people basically being strangers to each other. You have to have something. If it can be just fun time being with a certain group of people, that's enough. That's a purpose. He smiles and nods slowly. And you know what it's like. How to care for something you can't explain. Okay. I'll see about getting that medallion from Cyril. You'll find her at the Salty Mast. The only way anyone sees her these days is by paying, so you'll have to go through Maya. He fidgets with his sleeve. Whatever you do, please don't hurt her. Hmm. Yes, would be interesting. I'm not sure that's the whole story, but at the same time, ugh, more of these people. Begging your pardon. Oh, it's you. It's good to see you well. We had a few rough days here, but then we found this place, and they were kind enough to hire us both. Things have been wonderful. I can't tell you how much we appreciate what you've done. I don't recall these people anymore. Ah, yeah, it's the right. He killed his body and left it for the bear.
Welcome.
The man is dressed in neat but functional clothes. His sun-wrinkled skin and limber musculature reflect a life spent in the wilderness. Well met, what brings you to the Charred Barrel? Is this your place? It's my retirement, he thumbs the bar. Used to be a warehouse back when Brackenbury saw more ship traffic, but it fell out of use when the area became mostly residential. I inherited it from some great uncle who'd never had any luck pawning it off on my cousins. Now it's the most popular spot in Brackenbury. The nobles come to unwind, and gifts from other districts come to mingle. He leans closer. We get a few rough types too, but they behave in here. Besides, the coin's as good anyone else's. So who are you? I was the cartographer for the Duke for decades. He rubs his neatly stubbled cheek. Crossed the White March half a dozen times and mapped most of the ruins of Thane Bog. He grins, flashing a gold tooth. A good career, but one suited to younger men. When I came back to Defiance Bay for good, Cliver and a few other friends in the Knights helped me get the rights to refurbish this place. There's strong ale, quality entertainment, and a fresh sea breeze. He raises a mug. What more could a man want? Dragon egg dish, 4200. Plus 30 maximum endurance, plus 3 resolve for 5 minutes. Dragon meat. Plus 45 maximum endurance, plus 3 might, plus 3 resolve. Much shorter duration. Right, I don't think we have anything to get rid of, really. Level 5 adventurers to be hired at this point. Nope, I don't think so. Ah, and you too. Let's get this over with. You see a woman clad in expensive finery. Her eyes flash as she interrogates a trembling wreck on the ground. Reaching into his pocket, her hands curl around an address, and she smiles grimly. Moments later, she is in a bedraggled alleyway, her pace quickening. Her braids trail around a corner, and she is upon them, or perhaps they are upon her. The action does not last, as she easily dispenses of man after man, searching their faces, clothes, shouts for something she fails to find. Frustrated, she moves on, but not quickly enough, as an Orlan attacks her from behind, the seal upon his finger glittering with malice. The woman's eyes alight upon it as she twists to evade his blow, and her eyes burn bright. Perhaps this was not a wasted trip after all. You see a large group of people gathered in the common area of a large inn. This man is standing in the midst of the people, engaged in conversation with someone. He is smiling and talking gregariously, moving from person to person with ease. He is able to extract himself from one conversation and insert himself into another without a break in his stride. He kisses the hand of a well-dressed woman, dipping her, then twirling her back into the arms of her escort. He moves on to another group, slapping someone on the back while laughing at a joke, and then he is off again, sliding between people, hugging someone, shaking hands. He never stops. Finally, he seems to have hit his limit and he excuses himself from the gathering, much to the dismay of everyone there. He smiles and waves as he leaves, making a little bow with a flourish of the hand as he closes the door. Once he is away from the inn and around a corner, he pulls several objects from a concealed pocket in his jacket. He looks at each one in turn. A necklace, a brooch, a couple of coin pouches, and a small jewel. Smiling, he pours the money into his palm and quickly counts it, still aimlessly wandering the streets. He passes a beggar who holds out a bowl to him, pleading for a pittance. The man stops, smiles at the beggar, and drops all the coins into his bowl. Then he walks off, whistling happily. Uh, we have a basement. Metagame information. We got a level up somewhere. Probably I guess how much you want to see in your conversation. I'm happy with what I'm seeing. Athletics. Maybe decent survival too. I think we want more athletics to get the second win to be more useful. How about mechanics? Single point would allow us to place a trap somewhere. It's not much. At the same time, we just might want the ability at some point. It's a single point wasted if that doesn't happen. 2 bonus knockdowns per encounter. Weary Defender increases the fighter's awareness while in defender mode, granting a bonus to fortitude, reflex, and will. +5 all defenses except deflection. You get a -5 to deflection in defender mode. So those are the class talents. We might want to redesign this. He has a bonus to sword. Maybe something more interesting. In the Venom Strike. How about sword and shield style? Would be a defensive style, I guess. Weapon and shield. +6 deflection. Shield deflection bonus also applies to reflex defense. I'm guessing, is it this bonus or is it the entire shield bonus? It's actually quite good, and he's more or less the tank. The killing ability is nice, but we're sort of going more offensive capabilities with the support group. If he is unable to keep himself alive, it all crumbles down. I'm thinking of taking it. After all, I'm constantly using this style, so shield deflection bonus also applies to reflex. Hard to say how much it applies, but our defense looks respectable, our fortitude looks respectable, and even our mental and reflex saves are okay. Our weakness is to acid or corrode. Everything else, slashing, crushing, and piercing is very strong. With defense values, we can probably increase it further, temporarily. Right. A fine sword. If we're gonna craft something, we're going to do something about the sword. Maybe the shield. -8 accuracy. Ugh. No emeralds. Withrack brains. Requires level 8 anyway. +8 deflection. We can easily afford many of these. We only have one shield, so... Right. I'm not sure if this is the shield we want. It basically just has... It's a decent shield, but basically it's because of the bash that we're using it. I think they're probably better. This was... What? The first... Was this game from the first city? That's a long time ago. It's not terrible. I think we can do better. And if we get... but still, 6 extra defense isn't exactly a terrible thing. Bandits. Well, I don't particularly care about what they're doing. The proprietor has collected a respectable variety of bottles from around the world, from tart Adair reds to sweet summer vines from Rauatai. Is there anything besides booze here? Flasks of the infamous soul burn of the Deadfire Archipelago are nestled next to crystal clear Nasitagi and Glamfellan spirits. But just a lot of different type of booze. Pale yellow and deep amber whiskies from the Durwood and the Living Lands rest side by side. Just checking to upstairs if there's something of interest there. More to chest. Merwith watches you through kohl-rimmed eyes. She puts her hand on the hilt of her blade, jangling the jewels that hang from her waist or wrist. We don't know each other, stranger. Best we keep it that way. You don't seem like a Brackenbury local. I'm a sailor, she gives you a half smile, and the liberator of certain goods. Merwith casually fingers a large earring. And the nice thing about the snobs here is that they're usually too polite to ask more. So what brings you to Charred Barrel? Merwith raises an eyebrow. What's it look like? Good wine and a little piece of and quiet. She flips a copper coin with her thumb. And Skerion doesn't ask too many questions. Might leave it at that for now. Air Glanfall Part 2. Conflict and Unexpected Violence. Ixomiddle Water Jug. This map charts routes through the White March. There's two DLCs to the game. White March Part 1 and White March Part 2. 3 of these. Oh, for fuck's sakes. This map of Durwood and our Air Glanfath appears to predate the discovery of some of the ruins in the east. It's signed by a cartographer, a Skerion. I'll read those after checking if there's truly nothing else here. Ugh, right. You see a group of children shouting, twisted laughter erupting from two small mouths. An eyeless boy, face grown over with strange black tusks, covers against a log. His small shoulders shake as he whispers to himself, trying to block out the relentless trail of insults. Freak, monster, deathhead. The boy stays long after the other children leave. You see the same eyeless boy, now a man many years later. Another group crowds him, but this time it is an audience. He tells a long joke about a ghost and a privy, and by the time he reaches the punchline, the crowd is yelling, starting to sound very much like the first. You see a pair of chain gloves sitting on a table between two men. The gloves are inlaid with gold runes and glow with a faint blue aura. This man stands on one side of the table, and across him is another man dressed in arcane robes. The man retrieves a small pouch and hands it to the wizard, telling him to count it to ensure his payment is there. The wizard smiles, giving the man a half bow, and then empties the pouch into his hand. You wanted these gloves protected from thieves and other unsavory characters, he says, dropping the coins piece by piece back into the bag. Put them on, and they will never leave you. The man slowly slips his hands into the gloves, a look of satisfaction on his face. His smile falters a little once they're on his hands. The gloves flash briefly and then start making a light metallic tinkling noise. The look of satisfaction quickly becomes one of concern, and he grabs at the gloves, trying to pull them from his hands. His fingers tug at the openings, but they have shrunk, trapping his hands inside. The metal begins to work its way into his skin. Small drops of blood appear on the surface of the gloves. The man drops to his knees, fighting with them and crying in pain. The gloves constrict until they have completely shrunk around the man's hands, becoming one with the flesh. The man looks in horror at his hands, then up at the wizard, who has finished counting his money and is standing at the door. You certainly won't be losing them now, he says, stepping through the door, slamming it behind him, leaving the man on the floor staring at his hands. You see a woman sway, her voice floating gloriously above the court, lilting and sweet. It whisks around them, and they smile, enraptured, as she palms their hearts one by one. She begins to dance, but something in her step is offbeat. She pauses confused. A snatch of some foreign sound in the air. Competing, resisting. It takes her a moment to spot him. A small man with a single brow chanting under his breath, disrupting her song with his staccato incantation. She intensifies the dance, the swing of her hips wider, her feet a flicker above the square tile ground, the underlying chant in her own song more persuasive. His lips twist intently, vibrating with the effort of countering her charm. And then, a note, crystal clear, bright and tinkling. He begins to smile dazedly as her song continues, and he forgets all about resisting. She has won the day and the court. His ashtray is painted with colorful waves and whirls in the style of Rawatai. Right. So nothing particularly interesting here. A pirate leader of some sort. We need to get a taste of the salty mast. It would seem that that's probably the most interesting place. The harbor in general. We want some kind of unsavory characters. I'm actually surprised we haven't stumbled upon anyone here. I mean, potential, fuck. Potential one to join the group. You see a dark room. Noise filters in through a nearby doorway. The sounds of battle, scuffling, metal on metal, cries of pain, rise and fall as the fight rages on outside. There is a bellow of rage, and a Zorip runs into the room, holding a book tightly against his chest. It looks around frantically, searching for something. It hurries to the far side of the room and opens a box sitting on a makeshift table. It places the book in the box, closes it, and then bends over to push the box under the table. A small stone hits the back of the Zorip's head, knocking it forward a little. The stone bounces into the ground, rattling a little as it comes to rest on the floor next to the Zorip's foot. It freezes in place, hands still on the box, eyes wide. As the clattering of the stone quiets, silence takes control of the room again. Battle outside has stopped. It spins around to find this woman standing in the doorway, leaning on a savage-looking two-handed sword. That book contains the answers I need. She snarls at it, moving forward. It hisses, rushing to meet her. Seconds later, she is retrieving the stone from the floor, having separated its head from its neck with a practiced flick of the sword. She smiles, kisses the stone, and then places it in a pouch on her belt, patting it fondly. Leaning over, she pulls the box from under the table and opens it, elated with her find. You see a lush forest, quiet and dark in the early morning light. This woman walks through the trees, a captivated look on her face. She doesn't appear to have a particular destination in mind as she wanders slowly between the enormous trunks, looking up through the branches and occasionally making a low chirping sound. When a responding chirp echoes through the quiet morning, she turns to head in that direction, obviously not concerned with losing her way. A loud metallic snap, followed by a quick yelp, cuts through the air and she looks to it, focusing in the direction from which the sound came. She moves toward it on the verge of running. She seems to realize suddenly that caution is important and freezes. Looking down, her foot hovering over the pressure plate on a well-hidden bear trap. She leans back and gingerly places her foot back on the ground next to the trap. She looks around, anger darkening her features. Grabbing a nearby branch, she presses down on the plate and disables the trap. When it snaps shut, she hears another yelp, this time much closer. Scanning the ground for more traps, she carefully makes her way toward the trapped animal. Rounding one of the trees, she spies him. A large wolf, bony with malnourishment, right hind leg held tight in the rusty metal teeth. He looks at her and a low growl starts in the back of his throat. His hackles rise and she pauses briefly to let him catch her scent. She lowers herself closer to the ground and holds her hand out, palms down in front of her. "Aren't you a beautiful boy?" She inches toward the wolf. Okay. House... Sanitarium. Right, forgot about that. Actually, that might not be a bad thing. Because it's been quite a while again before we had something to do. It's just these. Story time after story time after story time after story time. Gameplay wise, these should probably be just ignored. Otherwise, unless you're really interested into listening to what I expect, some kind of a Kickstarter backers basically wrote these. Unless you're really interested in reading their little stories, definitely just skip and get to the actual good parts. You see this man kneeling naked before a dais in the center of a large round room. Across the room, opposite from where he kneels, stands a large throne. The throne's back and two of its legs are broken, rendering it unusable and causing it to tilt precariously on its stand. The room is ringed with figures clad in black robes, each chanting quietly, resulting in a low drone that pervades the room. On the dais, across the brazier, is another robed figure, holding a leather-bound book with charred marks on it. He is speaking to the naked man about fealty, dedication, and law. When he finishes, he bids the other to rise and holds the book out to him over the burning coals in the brazier. The naked man nods and the robed man drops the book in the fire. The naked man drops to one knee, briefly pressing his forehead to the side of the brazier. then stands and thrusts both of his hands into the coals at the bottom of the brazier. He retrieves the book, slowly presenting it to the robed figure before him. The man rubs his thumbs on the ash that has collected on the cover of the book, and uses it to draw a mark on the naked man's forehead over the burned flesh. The naked man bows his head and whispers, "Was that right, Doc?" The robed man nods patiently. The naked man looks to the broken throne with childish eyes. "Did you see that, man?" You see a burly man inspecting a dilapidated inn. The Aumaua salesmen almost dwarfing him as they walk through the once proud establishment. The walls are rife with stains, and only Weil knows what else smeared on every available surface. Not one thing stands unbroken, and moth-eaten blankets, rotting food, and trash give evidence to a succession of squatters. The man frowns, scrutinizing the space. The Aumaua gives him a final offer, flashing two white teeth with each syllable, oversized and threatening. With a sigh and a jingle as he hands over the coin pouch, the man acquires the dump of an inn and begins to plan. Cocoa. There isn't so much as a spot on these oranges. So high quality oranges. This is someone's house, we're not going in there. But I just need to quickly check here and here. Right. Marble is cool and perfectly smooth. Droplets of crystal clear water beat the statue. Ooh, another one. You see a rocky clearing, overgrown with weeds. A crumbling wall cuts through on one side, and the trees reach toward each other overhead, blocking much of the light that would otherwise illuminate the body lying near the wall. The body belongs to an elf, face down in the dirt. His clothes are torn and ragged. Large bruises seem to cover him, and there are cuts, abrasions, and lacerations everywhere skin is exposed to the air. The elf twitches, a muffled cry escaping his lips, blowing dust around his head. He begins to moan, his hands scrabbling against the ground, fending off something you are unable to see. His breath comes faster and faster until he's almost hyperventilating. With one final sound, a swallowed scream, his eyes fly open. In an instant he is on his feet, crouching, eyes widely looking around. His breathing doesn't slow, and every exhalation is a groan. With one last look over his shoulder, the elf runs into the embrace of the crumbling wall's shadow, all but disappearing into the gloom. Looking down at his present condition, he murmurs, "Don't see how someone who so clearly screws his own livestock can be so sensitive about it." Hey, an actual person.
Good day to you.
A woman stands in the shade of the garden, muttering to herself. She is fixated on the pages of a large and well-worn tome, seemingly oblivious to the blooming flowers and the cool, fragrant breeze. She only looks up when your shadow crosses her page. "Do you mind? I'm rather busy." "What are you so busy with?" She snaps her book shut. "I'm studying soul attachment. We all know that souls move into people at birth and out of them at death, but we still have a lot of questions about what makes them stick, so to speak. So what do you mean about making them stick? She brushes a stray lock from her forehead. Souls power bodies and give their tissues life, but only when they're firmly attached. It's separation that leads to a whole spate of soul-related ailments, including the Hallowborn. But if we understood how to reattach souls, we could end Wadewen's legacy, maybe even conquer death. She scratches behind her ear. That's the theory anyway. Unfortunately, I don't have all of the research I need to put it into practice. What exactly do you need? There's a manuscript called The Theorems of Pangram. It contains research from Pangram's experiments on detached souls. The whole of the revealed mysteries is rumored to have a copy in the Elder Archives. Pangram's work is considered to be one of the more daring animancy texts, not something generally circulated among novices, nor easy to get hold of. I wonder if we might have a peek at it. The theorems could advance my research by leaps and bounds, but Grimda, the High Archivist, worships Vale, which means she has some paradoxical views on sharing and restricting knowledge. And since she is not exactly a proponent of animancy, she tends to restrict the kinds of information that would be useful to me. Maybe she could be persuaded. You're welcome to try, but you wouldn't be the first. She sighs. Look at me spilling my troubles. It's kind of you to listen, but I should really get back to my work. Anything else? She looks eager to return to her studies. Questions about the theorems. Such as, tell me about the theorems of Pangram. Pangram was an animancer working in the Durwood. He had some interesting theories about essence and some rather innovative techniques for studying it. He was able to readjust souls to bodies after death, although he wasn't able to prevent his patients from degenerating. He was controversial, to say the least, but many are starting to realize that he was merely ahead of his time. What do you mean by degenerating? Nedin twists her hands together. Well, there seems to be a tiny problem with reattaching souls after death. The bodies will reanimate and may even retain memories and personality, but they develop a hunger for flesh, living soul-infused flesh. Without it, they start to devolve, decaying mentally and physically. If the process goes too far, which it eventually does, they become mindless corpses attacking anything that moves. We haven't figured out a way to avoid that. And you wonder why Grimda won't share this research with you. It does sound dangerous. I see. Anyway, because of this, very little of Pangram's research is in circulation. He's thought to have died several years ago, and the Hall of Revealed Mysteries owns the only copy of his work. She sighs wistfully. How I would have loved to have met him. Why doesn't Grimda lend you the book? The Hall of Revealed Mysteries is rather protective of its books, especially the rarer ones, and Grimda in particular. She hates animancy, thinks it's too dangerous. I don't see how you can run the greatest library in the Durwood and be so adverse to the spreading of knowledge and research. I've never understood these religious types. Aloth scolds at the Animancer. Some knowledge is best kept under lock and key. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. Can you tell me anything about yourself? I'm an animancer at the Sanitarium. Currently, I'm researching matters related to Wadewen's legacy. We know Wadewen's legacy, but maybe she can give some new information. Refers to the rise of hollow-born children in the Durwood in recent years. Some have also connected it to so-called biowax that blow through air gland path. There's hardly any reliable data on those though, so I can't really comment. She sniffs. I don't much care for the term Wadewen's legacy. It reeks of superstition, but it's too prevalent to change at this point. Personally, I'd like to see people take a more methodical approach to these matters, rather than throwing up their hands and blaming the gods. Don't think their Woodens would see too much fun in that. It's a sensible approach. It might be the gods, but if it's the gods, you can't really do much about it. I'll look at this so I can unlock this area for quick travel. Right. Sanitarium. Yeah, that's where we'll go. I want to unlock this area too. That's where the salty mass is. These charming windows are reinforced with iron bars and a double thickness of glass. Right. So, Sanitarium. I don't want to do the favors for the zombie guy. Uh, he might. I don't even recall his name. He might be the guy whose books we are about to go and steal. Pangram. No. Helig. But Helig is basically exactly what she describes. A rotting corpse at this point, and he looked at us at like he was about to look at a feast. So what we're going to do really is kill him, no matter what. So it's more of a question of what we're going to tell the guy who gave us the quest to find his long lost love. That's pretty much the only reason I'm bothering with this, because we know who she's going to be, but it's a game, so we probably have to. I don't I don't think it's supposed to be any kind of big revelation or a secret. It's just that I'm thinking, unless we complete this quest in the correct phases, the game won't acknowledge us knowing that information and being able to answer what happened to her and why we probably did what we did.